Can a signed settlement agreement be changed? Well, roughly 95+% of personal injury lawsuits are resolved through settlement instead of going through trial. So these settlement agreements are super common. And essentially, a settlement agreement is a written piece of paper, and it has important terms to it, like who's paying money, who's the money going to, how much money is being paid, and what claims are being released, and when is the payment due. So at a minimum, the person bringing the claim has to sign this. Once it's signed, it essentially becomes a contract that is enforceable, essentially, as a contract. Well, if somebody signed it and they change their mind, well, what can happen? Well, generally, if the other party does not want to go along with the change, the other party may want to enforce the settlement agreement as a separate contract. So, for instance, if you have two parties, we'll call one Chris, and Chris was injured by Scott, and Scott's insured by Liberty Mutual. So they get together, they reach a settlement for $100,000, and Chris later decides, hey, you know what, that was a bad deal. I know I agreed to it at the mediation. I know I already signed the settlement agreement, but I've changed my mind. Well, what's going to happen? Well, probably the lawyer hired by Liberty Mutual is going to go to the judge and say, hey, judge, look, this case was already resolved. We had a settlement at mediation. We put together a settlement agreement. Chris agreed with it. Chris signed it. And now Chris is trying to weasel out of it. So we want you to enforce the settlement agreement. So the judge is going to look at the settlement agreement and essentially interpret it as a contract, saying, well, here's a contract between these parties. Everyone agreed to it. It's signed. So the judge may very well enforce the contract, even though Chris changed his mind. So the moral of the story is, don't agree to a settlement thinking that you're going to be able to change the terms of it later, because there is a good chance you won't be able to.